Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss, where today I will be breaking down and discussing all the references and other things that you may have missed while watching the 8th episode of the 2nd season of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled I, Excretus. I have to say, this was one of my favorite Lower Decks episodes to date. This one really leaned into what is best about the series, and that is a love letter to fans of the franchise and continually reminds us of some of the best parts of Star Trek's storied history. This episode uses a training exercise as an excuse to have the crew of the Cerritos relive some of the best episodes of the series, and then ties it all together with a hero piece for our main cast. It was really a brilliant episode, and much like the 8th episode of the first season, Veritas, it allows the show to gain momentum going into the final 2 episodes of the season. But before I get into the episode, I wanted to welcome you to WDIM, as well as take a moment to thank everyone that helped the channel break the 10,000 subscriber mark this week. I really do appreciate it, and I can't wait to keep making more videos. So please drop a like here and continue supporting this channel so that I can keep churning out content. And if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. To start out with, even the title of the episode is a funny reference to the Season 5 Next Generation episode, I, Borg, which dealt with the Borg drone Third of Five, who later takes on the name Hugh, being rescued by the crew of the Enterprise D and demonstrating free will, which we learn in later episodes has a huge impact on the Borg Collective. This is also a clever way of explaining the resolution of this episode, as the crew of the Cerritos is ultimately able to defeat the instructor by going against the tests and demonstrating their own free will. This all, of course, is a reference back to the famed Kobayashi Maru test, which Starfleet Academy administers in an effort to have cadets experience the stress of a no-win situation. However, James Kirk was able to defeat the test by reprogramming the simulation so that it is not a no-win scenario, which in the Prime universe resulted in him receiving a commendation due to his free thinking. The events that took place were shown in the 2009 reboot movie, although altered slightly for that timeline. James Kirk also took this test multiple times until he passed, which is similar to how Brad Boimler takes his test multiple times until he is able to get a perfect score. The episode begins with the Lower Decks crew fixing a satellite, which results in them being left behind after the Cerritos is forced to respond to a distress call. The name of the ship in distress is the Bakersfield, which designates it as another California-class style ship, as Bakersfield is a city in the state of California, similar to Cerritos. Bakersfield, California was also used as a filming location for the Enterprise pilot Broken Bow and the 2009 reboot movie. That ship is caught in a temporal causality loop, which forces anyone caught within it to repeat the same events over and over again, like a sci-fi version of the Bill Murray movie Groundhog Day. This plot device has been used a few times in Star Trek, with the first being the Next Generation episode Cause and Effect, and the latest being the Discovery episode Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. The drill instructor in the episode is voiced by comedian Lennon Parham and is a Pandronian. This alien species was introduced in the original animated series episode Bem. It seems like almost every episode we get the return of another alien species that was introduced in the original animated series, and this is another example of Lower Decks being a show made for the fans who remember all these weird creatures. We learn that the instructor is Pandronian from Jennifer, the Andorian, who keeps popping up this season, and in this episode she is given a last name, which is Shi-Rian. Those of you who have watched my videos are probably tired of hearing this one, but in case you are not aware, this background character was created basically when Tawny Newsome ad-libbed the line "Move Jennifer" during the first season. Miss Newsome was not aware that the character would be Andorian, or else she has stated that she would have said a name that did not sound so human, but series creator Mike McMahon thought it was so funny that he kept it in the first season episode, and now has made her a recurring character. And I like that finally she has a proper Andorian name, Shi-Rian, which I can't help sounds a lot like Shran, the name of the storied Andorian commander, played by frequent Star Trek guest star Jeffrey Combs, who happened to lend his voice to an evil character in the last episode of Lower Decks as well. The character she is talking to is Winger Bingston Jr., who has been referenced this season a couple of times after debuting his one-man show in the first season and is voiced by Eugene Cordero, who also voices Ensign Rutherford. The character says the line, "And I thought I was a triple threat," which on one hand references his one-man show, but it may also be a reference to the fact that Eugene Cordero is one of the few actors to have characters in the Star Trek, Star Wars, and Marvel universes. When given their assignments, Mariner boasts that she can't wait to finish her test and soak in her commander's bathtub. This may be a reference to the bathtub that Captain Janeway was known to have on the Voyager, which was also used by Q and perhaps Neelix at one point. When Mariner's simulation begins, she is sent to the Mirror Universe, and is wearing a uniform that mirrors the one worn by Uhura in the first appearance of the Mirror Universe, the original series episode Mirror Mirror. As the Mirror Universe versions of Billups and Rutherford round the corner, Billups is bragging about how horny he is. This is a reference to the last episode of Lower Decks, titled Where Pleasant Fountains Lie, where we learn that Billups is an abstinent virgin because of the customs of his planet, which would obviously make him a hornball in the Mirror Universe. When Mirror Boimler deduces that Mariner is not who she says she is, he lets out a loud shriek, which is a recreation of this scene from the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Tendi's simulation requires her to deal with a Klingon who wishes to have an honorable death instead of living as a paraplegic. This is a recreation of the Next Generation episode Ethics, in which Worf is paralyzed and asks Dr. Crusher to allow him an honorable death. Mariner's next simulation puts her in the 19th century in an Old West setting. This is another commonly used Star Trek trope, which started with the original series episode The Spectre of the Gun, but I think this simulation is more likely a recreation of the Next Generation episode A Fistful of Datas. The simulation that Rutherford is placed in is referred to as the good of the many, which is taken from the infamous line said by Spock that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The setting Rutherford is placed in is a recreation of a scene from the movie The Wrath of Khan, in which Spock sacrifices his life to save the crew, and this is the same scene in which he says the aforementioned line of dialogue. Boimler is thrown into a simulation named the Borg Encounter, which seems to me to be a recreation of the events of the Next Generation episode The Best of Both Worlds, as well as the movie Star Trek First Contact. When he meets the Borg Queen, she is voiced by actress Alice Krige, who also played the part in the movie First Contact, as well as on one episode of Voyager. Mariner is then put in a simulation named Naked Time, which is a recreation of the original series episode titled The Naked Time, as well as the spiritual sequel to that episode, the Next Generation episode titled The Naked Now. While dining in the captain's mess, Tendi mentions how she likes pesto. Pesto is a pasta made with a basil sauce and is known for its bright green color, a trait that is also common with Tendi's species, the Orion. During the command crew simulation, a commander runs through wearing an outfit from the Renaissance Fair and asks if Q has been there. This is a reference to the Next Generation episode Cupid that involved Q sending the crew into the Robin Hood story. The commander also mentions the Jem'Hadar, which are the genetically engineered soldiers of the Dominion who were featured heavily on the series Deep Space Nine. When the entire crew is forced to work together on a simulated mission, it is described as them having to steal the Cerritos in an effort to save Spock's life, which is what the crew of the Enterprise had to do in the movie The Search for Spock. When the crew fights back against the drill instructor, they engage in a scenario with a being known as the Crystalline Entity, which debuted in the Next Generation pilot episode Encounter at Farpoint. When Boimler meets the Borg Queen, she blows on his cheek, similar to the way she blew on Data's newly grafted skin in the movie First Contact. After Boimler becomes assimilated by the Borg, he states that his name is now Excretus of Borg, which is a play on the name Locutus of Borg, the name that was given to Jean-Luc Picard after his assimilation in the Next Generation episode Best of Both Worlds. The name Locutus is derived from the Latin word locutor, or the one who speaks. If we applied the same logic to the name Excretus, it would translate to the one who defecates. Well, on that note, I'm going to end this video, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Once again, I want to thank everyone who has helped me reach 10,000 subscribers, and also thank you for clicking on this video. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?